Tax, and Audit Expert Exchange virtual event. We trust you had a productive and informative day yesterday. We are excited about today's lineup and hope you're looking forward to another day of great learnings. We would like to again thank our sponsors for making this event possible. Thank you to our platinum sponsors, Heartland, United Healthcare, and Sage Intact. Our gold sponsors, BDO, RSM, and CPA Academy. And our silver sponsor, On the Rocks. This event was only made possible through their generous support. Thank you. A few housekeeping reminders. All sessions are in Zoom and you join with your video and audio disabled. Questions can be entered into the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen. Sessions are being recorded and those recordings will be made available about a week after the conclusion of this event. Look for an email letting you know how to access. The individual customized session links can be found in the agenda located in the Finance, Tax, and Audit Expert Exchange section of restaurant.org, or the emails we sent out on Monday and Wednesday of this week and again this morning. We have an important update regarding the IRS National Tip Reporting Compliance session scheduled today at 1:30 p.m. Central Time. There has been a session link change. This session will now be a WebEx session, which enables collaboration with external partners and ensures you adhere to IRS policies on sensitive but unclassified and personally identifiable information. This session link was included in our Welcome to Day 2 email sent this morning. CPE credits are being offered through CPA Academy, a NASPA-approved CPE provider. You must follow the established guidelines to receive your certificate, to include responding to the poll questions and staying logged in for the minimum time requirement. Approximately a week following the conclusion of the event, you will receive a notification from CPA Academy when your certificate is available. Thank you to our poll sponsor, BDO, and don't forget during one of our breaks to complete the short 4-question survey you received this morning if you have not done so already. Their survey is being conducted to promote discussion around timely topics within the industry. For any media outlets joining today, please note all sessions are off-the-record presentations. And lastly, look for the event survey, which will be distributed by email at the conclusion of today's event. I'd now like to turn things over to Anna Tausen of the Texas Restaurant Association.
Thanks so much, Kelly. My name's Anna. Like she mentioned, I'm the Chief Revenue and Innovation Officer for the Texas Restaurant Association based in Austin, Texas. And I'll be moderating our first session of the day on virtual kitchen business models, which I know is a really hot topic for a lot of people in the restaurant industry right now. It seems to be the only area of growth that we're experiencing in the restaurant industry. So it's definitely something we want to relay to all of you. Our panelists today are Jen Hendrickson from Kitchen United, Kirk Mariello from Virtuant, Pete Mora from Fajita Pete's, and Philip Spear from Commodore and Assembly Kitchen. As you guys know, operating a kitchen without a dining room is not new, but during the pandemic, it's been lauded as a potential savior for the restaurant industry. Today, you're going to learn about multiple different business models, and these are all very different business models, as our experts break down the ghost kitchen model that works for them, how they work with third-party delivery companies, and whether you should partner with an existing business or go it on your own. At the conclusion of this session, we will have a 15-minute break. Thank you so much, panelists, for being here today. I know we've had this conversation a couple times already. These are definitely some of my favorite experts from around the country to speak with about this. So I think let's get started, and Jen, we'll start with you. If you don't mind introducing yourself and Kitchen United, and tell us a little bit about the Kitchen United business model, just an overview, and then we'll dig deeper.
Sure. Jen Hendrickson. Good morning, everybody. At Kitchen United, I was brought in to build distribution channels and partnerships that would drive growth for the company. I've been doing that for nearly 20 years across a bunch of different industries, and like a lot of people, got my start in restaurants. That was paid for a lot of college. As for the company, we sort of fell into it. I know we're going to drill in a little bit later, but we had our investment group for a company called Miso Robotics was shopping for office space. They found a former culinary school in Pasadena, decided that they liked the space and it was sort of related to their business, but they didn't have a business model for it. So they took the space and then went looking for a management team to figure out what to do. So that's kind of how we began nearly 3 years ago. And that management team created the model that we pursue today.
Perfect. Thank you, Jen. Pete, let's go with you next. If you don't mind talking a little bit about your business and where you're operating out of. You're on mute though, Pete. There we go.
There you go. Figured it out. I'm Pete. I'm out of with Fajita Pete's. We have now 18 units open. We're opening a couple more out here in Texas. We're spreading through Dallas, Austin next year. Finally signed some stuff in Kansas City, Denver. So it's growing pretty rapidly. We operate out of about 12 to 1,500 square feet, a very simple menu, fajita and fajita derivatives. We focus on family orders. Back before when you could do caterings to offices, we used to be very heavy into that. We deliver to homes just like a pizza place. And I think the fact that we're out of such a small footprint, have a simple menu has really helped us thrive during this season.
Yeah, absolutely. Kirk, I'm glad you joined us again, but let's go with you next. If you don't mind unmuting yourself and talking a little bit about Virtuant and what's, am I saying that right? Virtuant?
Virtuant.
Virtuant. Okay, great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kirk Moriello. I'm here in Chicago, and we have a company called Virtuant that I started with a partner of mine out of Florida. And what we do is we build virtual brands, and then we bring that virtual brand model to restaurants, ghost kitchens, any kind of facility that maybe a catering company that would want to build additional sales utilizing brands that we market and do everything. It's completely turnkey. So we bring it in, we set it up with the third-party delivery companies, and then we basically pay the restaurants to perform the function of what they do best, which is making the food and handing it off to a driver.
Great. Thank you, Kirk. Very succinct there, because I know there's a lot of details that go into that a little bit. So, Chef, let's turn it over to you next, and obviously tell me a little bit about Commodore, but then also Assembly Kitchen.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm Philip Spear. I'm the culinary director of Assembly. We own Assembly Kitchen, Commodore Restaurant, as well as Garage. I am also founder, partner, and the pastry chef of Commodore. Our pivot began in March, as most of the pivots did. We actually had a little foresight into it and began building a tech stack to create a company that allowed us to take, rather than taking hot food from our front door to your door or using a third-party service, it allowed us to create an infrastructure to have the food that we are making at Commodore delivered through our own delivery team to your home 80% of the way prepared, so that we did all the heavy lifting so that when you got it in your home, you could finish it, have warm, hot food that did not degrade in the delivery process. Also, be interactive with us through video, through Instagram Live, through cook-alongs, through Zooms, and chef-led dinners. We have since pivoted and even further and evolved into a virtual concessions and doing more corporate events, team building, allowing people from all over the country to have, whether it's a family dinner or a corporate meeting, over food.
Perfect. And just so people understand a little bit too, Chef, because they may not be familiar with Commodore outside of Austin and Texas, okay. What kind of food is it that you guys are preparing and delivering?
So Commodore is a restaurant. We've been open before we had to shut our dining room down. We were only open a year, but within that year, we built leading up to the opening of our restaurant, we built a building downtown Austin. It is a modern Mexican restaurant with a lot of influences from Mexico City and dining around Mexico City. We are very much local produce, local rancher, local farm restaurant, sometimes called farm to table, although all food comes from a farm, so all food is farm to table. We are we're very concerned and considerate with how we source and procure ingredients. Within the first year we were open, we were on, gratefully and humbly say that, just so you have an idea of who we are, we were on every top 10 list. We're on the cover of Texas Monthly as the best new restaurant in Texas for 2019, GQ, Esquire, etc. So we've had a successful year, and we've been very fortunate and blessed to have so.
Yeah, it is very fancy, and the building is beautiful, and their bone marrow tacos are very, very good, especially the crispy kale. Not
Thank you so much.
clearly I'm hungry already. It's only 11 o'clock here. So then let's stick with you, Chef, for just a minute to talk a little bit about, so the cook along experience was pretty important to what people were receiving in the beginning, but I know that doesn't go along with every single meal now. When do you find it's necessary to add that component, that cook along component, and when do you just deliver the food and give people the instruction?
Well, we went through the process of recording videos and putting QR codes onto our menus so that you can access those at any time. But we also did the live cook-alongs, really just to launch the brand, get a lot of social media impact. We also thought it was the way that we were going to run our business. We then decided and learned that as we got busy, that was going to be impossible because we did not have a team of 50 chefs that could run cook-alongs. So we focused a little bit more on our instructional. We took a few steps away, made it a little bit less daunting to prepare in your home. And then we started doing our virtual dinners or our chef-led events where, as I said a minute ago, you can either connect with people in your community. You can connect with people around the country because we now ship nationally. Over the same meal, you can prepare the same food. You can take a bite out of the avocado that came from the same Texas farm, anywhere from Boston to Portland to Houston, all at once. And then we lead those dinners. So I, as the chef, if I'm leading that dinner, I can talk to you about where the food came from. We can talk about different textures and smells of the food, which then connects you in a different way because you're sharing those same experiences with someone across the country. So it's a way to really get on the same page with someone. So it's been great for team building as well, because it allows some of these corporate teams, and we've had a lot of success with, teams such as Lululemon and Bumble and some of these other large amazing brands who are sharing these meals together.
Right. So, okay, I'm gonna switch gears and go to Pete next because we're talking about sort of GQ, Lululemon, Bumble. Those are definite brands that have like a clientele that has a little bit more money to spend. So Pete, let's shift to you a little bit and talk about the fajita business and how that's going. And I know, it feels like we just talked a month ago and you've already seen some big expansion. I know you guys were investing in a franchise model. So how's that going and what does it look like financially for you guys right now?
No, everything's been great for us. Surprisingly, the loss in catering from here in Houston, we do a lot of oil companies, hospitals, and there's a lot of med centers, things like that. So those slowed down for a little bit, but the change happened very quickly. Just the fact that we already did 95% of our sales outside of our doors made it easier for us to transition to the new model. So really, we just had to cut a couple holes in some buildings and add a pickup window and add a person to do curbside. We already had the technology to do contactless. We already had prepay, all that set up. We've been doing this since 2008. So it was just an easy pivot for us. I think that's what led to the rapid expansion in the franchising and selling. Now we're over 40 units we've sold since this thing started, and growing. We're getting calls from people that want to do host kitchens, concepts that have underutilized spots in their kitchen now. They want to bring in the food that we prepare and sell it to theirs. So there's a lot of opportunity that's come from it. It's opened our eyes to new things that we weren't thinking about in the past. We're going to retail now, shipping, like Chef said. We're trying to expand that part of the business. And you feel bad saying it, but we've been not hurt by it. It's weird.
It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about that. I understand that we've talked to a lot of restaurant owners that feel that sort of survivor's guilt, in a way. But for you to be able to pivot and innovate.
I'm Colombian, so I'm familiar with survivors. We've gone through things.
Not going to get political here, but yes, that's great, Pete. But that's amazing. More than 40 units, that's huge. That's way more than when we talked last. That's fantastic. So talk to me a little bit about the costs. And I know this, Chef, you feel free to jump in on this too. But the cost to ship these goods, what does that look like? How did you decide on your packaging, and what does that average cost look like per household?
No. We're just starting. Literally after this call, we're developing our packaging, and all we do now is ship to our little kids who've been eating with us since they're in elementary school. Now we're shipping to their colleges, but this is going to get more formal and more. Our provider who does all our marination is actually going to ship for us directly to supermarkets and ready to go meals and things like that is what we're going to do. And then that'll help the local stores sell to individuals game day packs or the tailgate packs, things like that. We just want to kind of dip our toe in and get really good at it before we push it big, because it's a lot we don't know. But since we already have 80% of the work done with the way we distribute to our franchise system, I don't think it's a large leap to take the next step.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah, there's a lot we don't know too. I'm a chef, and that's what I am. That's what I've always been. I'm not a logistics or shipping professional. We began Assembly Kitchen to get food into our community, to continue to employ our staff, and to offer a product into people's homes that wasn't degraded by travel. So, and also add an entertainment component and aspect to bring hospitality to your home. When we decided to grow into statewide and the national shipping, it's still a learning curve. It's so complex. And as you start to learn about different shipping companies, their rates, how they do it, when you talk about weather, shipping in May is much different than shipping in October 1st. We've learned that's 3 ice packs versus 1 ice pack, which then takes away 2 pounds of shipping, which makes a smaller box, which brings you from a $46 shipping cost to a $30 shipping cost. Like, these are the things we're learning. And the more volume we get, the deeper those discounts become. So it's still a learning curve, and I assume it will continue to be a learning curve. And it's very, very complex, but learning.
That's good. I mean, Chef, that's what you guys do, is you solve problems. So it's just a logistics thing. So Jen, let's switch to you to talk a little bit more about Kitchen United logistics, because they are very interesting. Talk a little bit about how many locations you guys have right now, how many partners, and then we'll get into some revenue and profit projections.
Sure. So currently we've got 4 sites in operation today. We started in Pasadena. That's where the investors found this space, which was a former culinary school, not particularly optimized for takeout and delivery. So we work around some of the footprint issues, which I'm sure restaurants are finding in their own brick and mortars today during COVID, sort of dine-in space. What do we do with it now? Our second site opened in Chicago, River North, which was also a former culinary school. And then 2 stick builds so far. One is in Scottsdale, Arizona, and the other one is in Austin, Texas. So which we love and have absolutely we've been so warmly welcomed and well received. It's just been really stunning. In our model, we carry the CapEx, we build out the facility. Typically, we put 8 to 12 fully equipped and fully self-contained commercial kitchens within that space. We curate within each area that we go to. So we do a lot of brand curation to make sure that the brands coming in are meeting the cuisine demands of the consumers in that immediate delivery area, which we consider to be a 10 to 15 minute transport time from the kitchen center. We don't put competing brands. We try to typically a guideline is to do a mix of, maybe a third larger chains and a third regional concepts and a third hot locals. Austin is a great example of a market, though, that is super hyper local. And we have brands like Soul Jus that are just, killing it there. So that's kind of our model. We turnkey solution. We staff the facility with the shared labor. So we manage any food running, dealing with consumers, assisting with orders, receiving restaurant supply chain. We'll wash dishes, kind of all those pieces so that the restaurant doesn't have to worry about that. The restaurant puts a cook or 2 in a kitchen and they execute their brand. They focus on the food prep and the packaging, and we sort of take care of everything else. Very brand forward. We have a technology stack that sort of wraps all of these services together, and it allows consumers to order across multiple concepts in a facility. So that tech stack does 2 things. One, it aggregates orders in for the restaurant through whatever channels they're operating. Orders can come in through their website or their social channels. We work with all of the delivery service providers. Everything prints onto a simple KDS printer in the kitchen. And then if consumers want to go to our website, they can order across all concepts. We find that that drives, on the economic side, it drives higher ticket values typically. You have larger groups ordering from different tastes and flavors. And they can place orders that way for pickup and delivery as well.
Yeah, the mix concept, right? Are y'all still using, okay. And
yeah, so we branded the consumer. We're not very ghosty, and I sort of forget sometimes that there's so many sort of permutations of this model. We're very out there, open, lit up. We have the consumer-facing brand is Kitchen United Mix, the concept being that mix it up and get whatever you want. And then the brands are very prominent and forward-facing on our website and on our buildings.
But whenever a consumer is ordering, say from the Kitchen United store in Austin, if they're ordering via DoorDash or Uber Eats, they don't know that it's coming from the Kitchen United facility, right? It doesn't show.
Not necessarily. What's interesting, and this is one of the reasons why we went with a visible footprint, what we found is that platforms like Yelp and others, the address is there. So for the brand, it will show up online, and Google will find it as a physical address for a brand or a restaurant. And you know, some of our early investors and starting management team have stories about you know, consumers going and finding an address in a dark back alley and sort of knocking on the, you know, like, is there food here?
Right.
They find you. That's the thing. And so if we just decided if we put it out in the open, it just kind of solves all these problems for everybody.
So how, I mean, do you help the brands with that kind of structured data within Google, or, you know, using Yext as a partner or anything like that for people to understand that, like, this is takeout only versus dine-in?
Very much. So some of our facilities do have small in-house, that we're using them, in-house places where you can have a seat or two and eat there, or you can pick up to take away. Sorry, repeat the question.
Yeah, in terms of, like, for discoverability for the restaurants, can they,
yes.
I mean, you help people understand that, like, this is not a actual dine, because in Austin, there isn't a dine-in component, right?
No, there isn't. So what our corporate team does is we partner very closely. We have a corporate team at headquarters that works very closely with the brands in marketing. We launch co-marketing efforts to drive volume and to raise awareness of what the facility is and how it functions and operates. And then we also have dedicated teams that work with the brands to conduct quarterly business reviews with each brand. So we share all of our data with the brands. We help them communicate with customers however they need in different ways to make sure that they're understanding the model.
Yeah, that's great. Cool. Although maybe you should add patio dining to the Austin location. That would be kind of nice too.
Yes.
So Kirk, thank you so much for sitting there patiently while we went through a bunch of other people. Let's talk a little bit more. Oh yes, Patty, great reminder. Yes, I forgot about that. Let's take one of the poll questions on how familiar you are with the ghost and virtual kitchen concepts. Think about how you felt 20 minutes ago before we started this. So now obviously you're a lot more familiar with it and will continue to get familiar, but just go ahead and fill that out whenever you can. Okay, great. So Kirk, let's go back to you. Remind us again about the Virtuant concepts, how many partners you have right now, and where you're finding your kitchen space.
Okay, so our whole premise behind Virtuant is that we want to bring a turnkey solution to local restaurants, franchise companies, whoever had kitchen space and the availability to cover a market territory that Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber Eats, Postmates would be delivering within that region.
Right.
We develop very simple brands. Every brand, we have 14 current brands that we market on the sites. We hire local restaurants. Right now, we've been building out the Chicagoland market, and the Chicagoland market will have 90 restaurant partners on live by the end of October. That'll be producing 14 different brands. In some cases, some restaurants have all the brands, some restaurants have partial brands, some restaurants have the brands for certain hours of the day, and other restaurants. We try to cover the time periods of the day of at least 8 a.m. to midnight with the brand, so there's lots of options for the consumer. We are very brand focused in the type of food it is. So for instance, you might have a family restaurant that is one of our partners and they have a menu that has every kind of item on there. Well, they would have 5 of our brands, which would be specific to French toast, specific to pancakes, specific to skillets, specific to omelets. And we find that the smaller the more focused the menu is, the better it is for the consumer in the market to find and search today. As everyone knows, when you go on those apps, there's thousands of restaurants that are on the apps, and you want to be able to stand out, and you also want to be able to be searched. So when someone searches for a BLT, we have a BLT brand, and we have 7 different BLTs. So we pop up first in all the search functions. And I think according to DoorDash, 65% of people now use the search function by food because there's so many options that they can't find what they're looking for.
Yep.
So we're very focused, but our whole model is to bring that to the local businesses so that they can have a whole new business model within their current restaurants. We utilize the exact same labor until the economies of scale of amount of sales start to tip. Do they ever have to add anybody? All of our restaurants today operate on exactly the same amount of people they already had in their kitchens prior. Many of our restaurants are now doing greater than pre-COVID numbers overall, which, again, they kind of feel bad, but at the same time, some of them are looking at it going, do I really need a dining room anymore? Maybe we can just go to being a ghost kitchen, right? So it's all depending on the markets and the size. We give dedicated territories so that all of our brands only go to certain restaurants within a dedicated territory.
So you're not going to, sorry to interrupt, just want to make sure, like, in terms of Chicago, right? Like, so how many different BLT brands would you have in the inner loop?
We have one BLT brand called Amazing BLTs,
right?
But we'll have 90 restaurant partners that service that brand within the Chicagoland market. So really, the model that we've put together is really a distribution model.
Right.
All right. So brands. I was in the franchising business long before this with a Chicago brand called Aurelio's Pizza, and one of our big issues was always building that distribution channel, which was our franchisees. So we're able to build that distribution channel much faster. With virtual brands and going to the restaurants. And we also work with them to make sure that we're utilizing the same or many of the same ingredients that they already have. So currently with the brands we have, the restaurants that we partner with have 95 to 98% of the inventory already in order to make those products and support the community. So that's kind of where we go. We work with the delivery services to make sure that we're always in the right spots on their apps. We spend a lot of money there. It's a whole different game in making sure that you're at the top of the list. And typical restaurants don't understand how to do that. So we bring that expertise. We also help our partners get their brands into those positions so that their current brand that they're operating out of their restaurant, they end up getting greater sales. So we've been able to help them get up to 30 to 40% a month additional sales out of their own brands by making sure they're positioned properly on the apps and how they run promos and things like that.
That's helpful. That is helpful. So it's not just about your brand development. It's also helping the partner develop their brand too. So
absolutely. We need that partner to be really strong overall.
Yeah. So what would make an ideal restaurant space partner in your mind? Like, how much available space do they need? What, besides the 95% of the product, like what kind of space are you looking for?
They don't need any more space than they currently have. Sure. We operate out of their kitchens exactly the way they're set up now. There's nothing special about equipment that needs to be used. We design all the brands so that they work. We have high-end Italian restaurants. We have hot dog and hamburger restaurants. We have breakfast restaurants that operate, from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. It doesn't really matter what kind of restaurant it is. It's just a matter of can their operations overall handle additional business. In today's market, it's very simple. We average $32 an order with our brands. So the idea is to bring in 15 to 30 more orders a day for each restaurant, which can be up to $1,000, and some restaurants do more than that, depending on the territory they're in.
Do you evaluate the partners in terms of like how many orders they're able to produce?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we do an evaluation. So we go to market different in that we have sales reps that go in. So we have a major partner that is the second largest food distributor in the country. We partner with them. Their sales reps bring us into the accounts that after we train them on who can benefit from it. So we get in right away. We show them how things work. We use a consolidated tablet system so that every order flows through one tablet in the store, prints in the kitchen, so they don't have to put things into POS systems. They don't have to collect any money.
So
Everything goes to us. We pay the rest.
So you mentioned working with distributors. Are you able to provide like additional, because of your relationship with distributors, obviously you're ordering a lot of product. Are you able to provide additional rebates for the restaurant partners you're working with?
We're working with the particular partner we're working with right now. We're working on putting together special pricing in areas so that they're getting, it's more a regional play in that way because every market is a little bit different in the moving product and how much their landed costs are and things like that. So it's a little more complex, but we are getting there in the Chicago market right now to be able to help those partners. We don't require anybody to buy from a certain partner. But we suggest that these partners can help them better with their food costs in that way, but we don't have any requirements in that way.
Yeah, that would be challenging, but okay. Interesting.
Anna,
Yes.
we had a question come in. Can we go ahead and respond to that? Or would you like to wait?
Okay, so this is kind of related to talking about working with third-party delivery companies, right? So let's do that. In the meantime, Patty, if you want to go ahead and trigger that one question on that's kind of related to what Kirk was talking about on creating a new, or using your kitchen basically for a ghost concept. Okay, great. All right, so the question that just came in is around handle tipping your employees in a ghost kitchen, and don't all the tips now go to DoorDash, Uber, etc. That is, I mean, the tipping question is definitely a big one. We've been tackling that one for years when it comes to third party. So who wants to tackle that one first? Jen, let's talk about tipping.
Put me on the spot. You know, I actually don't have an answer for you. Yes, if you're operating on a third-party app, as a consumer, I know that is where the tip goes. It goes to the person that's bringing the food. In our model with cooks in the kitchen, it certainly wouldn't stop anyone from leaving tips at the kitchen center when they come in and place the orders through us and online. And we do have we can facilitate that. I think that it's the other thing I was going to mention, sorry, like I said, I have not had enough coffee this morning. The other piece is that as brands go just through the kitchens, sorry, I completely lost my train of thought. So I'm going to pass it over to somebody else to pick me up and I'll come back to it.
Jeff, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the reasons we created the system the way in which we did to utilize all of our staff and not a third party delivery system was so that we could A, utilize all of our staff, and B, we could take the tips and keep them in house, and we do so. Now that we ship as well, you know, the shipping gets passed to the guest, and there's still an opportunity to tip. So our tips go back to our staff, but you're absolutely correct. When using third party delivery service, not only are you tipping the person who is delivering the food, you're also paying 15% for your third-party delivery service, and then the user or the restaurant is paying up to 30%. So yeah, it's a lucrative model for that third-party service.
Well, it should be. Most of them are still operating in the red. So that's kind of wild about it. Now there is in a lot of these apps, there is an ability to tell your DoorDasher or Uber driver or something, hey, please tip the restaurant employee 15, 20%, but most of them don't do that, and it's not natively built into the app. It's something we
And thank you you actually did trigger my memory there, Philip, so I really appreciate you picking that up. So the other thing is that in our ghost kitchen model, the way that we operate is that we allow orders to come in, we facilitate orders coming in through the restaurant brands. I think it's interesting during this time of COVID because restaurants are getting really smart about how to leverage technology to reach an off-premise diner. And so personally, in my city where I live, I typically phone the restaurant and I go down and pick up my order and I tip directly. But if I can access the restaurant directly online and tip that way and go pick it up, that's what I do. And so we do help drive those orders directly through restaurant channels so that they don't have, just to reduce their fees overall across all platforms.
Yeah. Kirk or Pete, you guys want to weigh in on tipping?
No, I think since we were delivering before Uber and all them, we did the same thing that Chef did as far as have our own delivery fleet. So that wasn't really an issue. Now we have kind of a hybrid model with the third parties where if it's within our 3-mile radius, which is our radius, they send us the order and we deliver it. Now, as far as tipping, it's just going through every day, seeing what people tip on the app, on the third party app. It'll give you a breakdown of the tip, and just we do pull tipping, so it's easy to distribute, daily or on their check, however you decide to do it.
We strictly operate our brands through the third-party delivery apps. Only for delivery, we don't allow pickup at the restaurants. So the tipping, whatever way the third-party delivery app set up the tipping, that's the way it goes.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some unexpected financial considerations. Chef Spear was talking a little bit about some things he's learned when it comes to shipping, obviously. But Kirk, let's start with you. Actually, whenever you guys developed this, obviously it was a new idea. What were some unexpected costs that came up, and how have you managed those?
From our perspective, where we ended up with different unexpected costs was really when we were building out the model for the particular restaurants. So we modeled out our cost structure utilizing the apps, the delivery apps, as a tool, right? As opposed to the way restaurants typically go to a delivery app, they'll send them their menu and then they put their menu online, but they didn't take into account that the delivery app is going to be taking their percentage, so then it takes down. So it gave everybody a sour taste in their mouth in the restaurant business. What we've done is we've designed all of our menus and our menu pricing around the fact that we do pay that, we do have a delivery fee. So it allows us to manage that differently, and our menus only live online, so there's no comparison menus that pop up where you might see if I buy it from the restaurant, it's this price, if I buy it online, it's this price. Ours is only lives online. So the pricing is what it is. So we ran into, okay, we're going to manage this. Well, what ends up happening is you end up in situations where in the cities, the market is a little bit different because their costs are a little bit different, right? The rents and all the costs that you don't take into account when you're building a food cost model are there. So we had to move to a more sliding scale pricing model. And we allow the restaurants to have more say now in what pricing we should be charging in the market. And they help us do that. Because the last thing you want to do is you don't want to leave money on the table either. If the market calls for a certain price, you want to be able to charge that price. You don't want to be undercharging the market, but you also don't want to be overcharging the market. So you kind of you have to know your markets, and the best people that know the market is the restaurateur. And when we bring in our expertise of multiple restaurants in multiple areas, we can really pinpoint that pricing model and get it proper. And that's been something that we didn't have initially, but it took us about 2 months to figure out we need to make sure that happens.
Yeah, it's definitely a learning curve, but that's not that long. 2 months isn't too bad. So Jen, obviously you guys have built, 2 different places as well, but ignoring those sort of building costs, right? What were some other sort of unexpected costs that might have come up in working with the partners and getting their product out there?
Yeah, it's interesting. From our perspective, from a Kitchen United perspective, we did have a surprise or two around member adoption of our services because we are turnkey. So if we look at our own sort of like financials and labor and how we manage that, Scullery is a great example. So some brands adopted, we included it, some brands adopted it very heavily, and some didn't use it at all. So we had to sort of adjust and enhance services in ways that would better meet the needs of our members. From a restaurant perspective, we used to spend some time stepping members through the P&L. So just like Kirk was just saying, related to delivery costs through the delivery service providers, the P&L looks a little bit different. And we assumed in the beginning that a ghost kitchen would be 100% delivery. And so, of course, overall, if your overall delivery revenues are higher, your overall cost associated with that is going to be higher. Sorry, I just have this pop up. A poll popped up.
Yeah, I asked Patty to trigger that one.
Perfect.
we're trying to ask questions throughout. Anyway, sorry, didn't mean to derail you,
No,
Jen.
it's all good. So what we found instead was actually a positive surprise, which is that consumers disproportionately choose to pick up anyway, which is one of the reasons why we did develop that pickup center. I see Pete nodding, so I'm curious if that's been the experience in his facility also. But we would have people see brands on our windows and come in and say, hey, can I get food here? And initially, you know, we were like, well, yeah, you can go to this app and, you know, you pick one. And they're like, well, that's kind of dumb. And we thought that is kind of dumb. so the positive impact to the restaurant really is that that piece there. And then also that cross concept ordering, what we're finding is the technology enabling that it drives a higher average order value if members can order across the facility. We ditched this other pop-up. And then the commission we charge for pickup orders, because we do charge consumers for using our technology. We do not charge a % of sales from restaurants unless it comes in through our stack, but that commission charge is much less than what the delivery services would charge. So the profitability makes a lot of sense for the restaurants in our facilities.
Sure. Pete, you want to add to that? Because we did see you nodding about that.
Mm-hmm.
I just like to agree. No, I think that it's been surprising. I was running numbers on our stores, and to see the flow after COVID, it's right down the middle, pickup and delivery, which is interesting, you know. And that's a thing that I think people don't consider with these ghost concepts, is that you're leaving half on the table. As we get approached by larger brands to incorporate us into their kitchens, I let them know that is something that they can't use our track record and sales record apples to apples when modeling something, because you have to consider that there's a lot of people that just are stuck at home. They want to go pick it up. They want that connection. And as full service, I came from full service, my first restaurant, but I feel like there's something in the market that's going to have to give. There's going to be a middle ground where people still want that connectivity and that genuine interaction that I tell people. And I'm not smart enough to figure it out, but I think hopefully somebody will. And I think it's very important to keep that in your business model if you can.
I wonder too, just as a reflection on this and thinking about what happened in the early days of the pandemic. I mean, the idea of food democracy, right? Remember that especially in Texas, more so than other parts of the country, people were getting their food from restaurants versus grocery. We had 51% of the food dollar was coming from restaurants versus grocery. And I remember getting calls early in the pandemic from truck drivers and homeless people who were trying to order food, but they could not go inside anywhere, right? All of our dining rooms were shut down, all of our ordering counters were shut down, and they would not, certain quick service restaurants wouldn't let them walk through the drive-through for safety and liability reasons. But I wonder if there's something to that in making sure that like food is still accessible via these ghost kitchens through pickup windows or something easier, or even like the ability to order not on an app, right? And I mean, that doesn't seem so crazy, I think.
No, yeah, God forbid somebody shows up with money in their hand trying to give you money, and then you say, no, hold on, you can't do that.
You have to go through here, yeah.
Yeah, and I think even the larger brands are attacking it. They're talking to them. I'm talking about huge brands are that's going to be another phase of it. It's phase 2 is going to be incorporating whatever you do. It's going to have a curbside element to it. If not, you're leaving. You know, it creates a better connection, I think.
No, it totally does. It totally does. So, Chef, let's go back to you. Obviously, you pivoted very quickly during the pandemic, and you must have been working on something before then, because you guys came out with Assembly really fast, it seemed like. Yeah. But virtual is really big right now, and I think has been accelerated obviously because of the pandemic. But why do you think it's likely here to stay?
Well, we're creating new habits first and foremost. So, you know, there's definitely a virtual renaissance, if you will, and there's a kind of a reacquaintance with the dining room table with your families. So I think that people are understanding that that connection that you're not getting from the restaurants, you can get from home. However, I hope that restaurants don't go away, because I love restaurants and that's my livelihood and my passion. And, you know, I'm a chef first and a logistics manager later. And, you know, restaurants are my entire livelihood. Pete said something last time that we spoke that I really got excited about, and I think it's totally true. He said that he felt like more. I'm paraphrasing here. More people were coming and driving through because they were getting that connection curbside, even if it was for 30 to 90 seconds, a check-in, a hello. You know, there's obvious community built around his business, which I think is amazing. And I agree with that. And people do come to our door. We decided to go ahead and offer some to-go food at Commodore. It's a whole new menu. You know, our food does not travel well, but we can make tacos and tortas that can travel well. And people do come in and they say hello and they're looking for that connection. You know, I think the virtual, there's a whole myriad of reasons why virtual is, you know, we had a boost over COVID, but it is obviously here to stay. It is the direction of the future, but I hope that it is a hybrid of your important sit down meals that you have, your celebrations, people who come out and want to be taken care of and are craving that hospitality and that nurturing sense of a great restaurant. But I do also appreciate being able to sit down with my family every night, because I haven't done that in a very, very long time. And it's amazing. And it's a new habit that's here to stay for me. So I assume for other people as well.
Jen, do you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, you know, a couple of the numbers rattling around in my head on the virtual side, and just sort of elaborating on what Phil was saying. Technomic observed that off-premise growth in 2019 outpaced dine-in by 200%. They also say that by 2026, 80% of millennials will be parents of the next gen app users. So the demographic that has really driven this virtual shift, being millennials and Gen Zs, are, you know, now will be raising very soon more digital generations. So that in itself is not going away. Even delivery apps in 2019 had 29% year-over-year growth. Post-COVID, what's happening is that consumers of other age groups and other demographics are getting familiar with technology. And so when you look outside of the initial drivers, which were really pushing, you know, in general about, you know, a $300 billion market, they were predicting by 2020, pushing outside of that traditional age group that grew up with technology, you know, Gen X and beyond are getting very comfortable with technology in general, whether that's to get their groceries or to, you know, pick up their order at Nordstrom or whatever it is. And so we're in restaurants right now, I think, have an opportunity to really, to reach a broader audience in ways that can get really interesting and creative. Like the things that Philip and Pete are doing are just, so ahead and learning and pivoting and driving and pushing it. Well, Pete was actually kind of started all of this 2008. But yeah, the opportunity really is a broader audience. It's a broader audience. And how can we get creative about ways to still have people come together and enjoy? Food is about enjoying life and celebrating and all of these things. And how do we continue that connection?
Well, on that vein, then I want to talk to Kirk a little bit about that, because like, how, Kirk, do you then create connection with the brand that does not have the physical space at all? It really truly is virtual, exists in another restaurant's kitchen. How do you create that warmth and connection and hospitality feel just through a transaction?
You can't. It just doesn't exist. But the bottom line is the consumer today is different than the consumer from years past. There's a few things that come into play. There's the virtual business is an on-demand model.
Right.
Okay? It means that I want something, I want it now. I don't care what it costs. I need it, and I'm going to pay for it no matter what. This is something that the restaurant industry has failed at over the many years, and that is that the restaurant industry has underpaced the overall market in any type of business in growth and in profitability. And the reason why is that the menu pricing has been so below where the market should be for decades now. All right. And the fear of the reason why that happens is the fear is if we raise something $1, the customer is never going to come back. Right. And the reality is that's completely false. All right. And I can tell you how false it is by if you saw what we do in sales and what we sell things for in the online market. Let's put it this way. Our partners, some of them are like, it makes them crazy that someone will pay for something, but that's what the market should be. And so there's this gap now between the pricing in the restaurants and the pricing online. And it's a huge gap, guys. It's
So-
like 25%.
So let me ask you then, Kirk, for your standard BLT, what's the highest you're charging right now?
We'll get for what's called the standard BLT, we'll get anywhere from between $10 and $12 for the BLT. Just the sandwich.
Just a sandwich.
Just the sandwich.
Better be a damn good BLT.
But it's a demand market. It's
Sure.
the consumer wants something, they want it now, they need it now. The consumer doesn't act in the same way they do when they go to restaurants. They go to a restaurant and they plan to go to a restaurant. When they order online, it's because they're sitting in an office or on a Zoom call like we are, and their stomach starts to growl and then they're hungry. And they're not going to run out to a restaurant to order the food. It's too easy and convenient to pick up your phone and have it delivered to you.
I guess I just think I disagree. I think that there's room for both, right? I think
No, there is. There's
room
definitely
for
room for both. But the restaurant industry should be taking advantage of this opportunity right now to be able to move their pricing levels on their menus because there's an opportunity with COVID and everything else that's going on to get that profitability back in line. When I see restaurant companies, franchises that are putting 7% to their bottom line and their franchise companies, that's crazy. I mean, who would invest in something to make 7%? I mean, but they do. And, it's more of an ego thing, but it has to be a business model that works. I mean, you've all seen it. We've all been there.
Go ahead, Pete.
I just think that it brings together two things because you're no longer selling food. So, and I think that's what people don't understand. That like we tell people, we sell convenience with the side of fajitas. They say, why is your ticket average $54? Because we sell to, first of all, we sell to families. I don't want to sell half quesadillas. I've been there. I've had a 60-table restaurant full of people, hour and a half wait, and I have a whole bunch of half quesadillas, and now I got to clean that whole place up. No, I want to do catering to offices. I want to do families. When we present something, we present it always in the family meal style. So I do think there is that convenience charge that people are willing to pay, and I think the third party has actually helped us. Because we did have that guilt, like, no, we can't charge that much for this. We run it cost based and price on that. Where really you should do it the other way. You see what your cost is irrelevant when you're pricing yourself in the market in some sense. But it's definitely a balance of the two, and you have to know where you fit in depending on the type of food you sell, the type of experience, or the perceived value of that type of food you sell. So I think there is a lot of opportunity because the intangibles are the great things to sell. I mean, feelings, love, convenience. People pay whatever they want for that.
Well, I mean, I've paid for Chef Spear's food to get delivered to my house and someone else cook the rest of it off because I don't have time to do that. But like, it is definitely at a premium. I mean, and I know what I'm getting. I know that the quality I'm getting is a connection. So it is just two different types of transaction.
Yeah, I think that people are still going to have to stand on their product. And now with all these little companies coming around, I think it is going to, it's always going to come down to product. It'll go in full circle. And good people will be standing at the end just like always.
You know what I'm actually surprised about? I'm actually surprised that I haven't seen more distributors get into this business. I'm really surprised to see that like Cisco and Benny Keith and US Foods have not said, you know what, we've got all these products right here and kitchens.
Yeah, I mean, there's a local distributor called Farmhouse Delivery.
Oh yeah.
That has really made a great move into going into the meal kit service and delivering those. I mean, they had done it before, similar like a CSA, but now they really push it through this time, and it's been successful for them. I will agree with Kirk that the restaurant prices over the last 2 decades have not grown to meet the market. I think this is a educational and a societal thing where people don't understand that food. You don't go to a restaurant and open up a walk-in and there's just food there, right? There's so much to that process. We are paying more and more for food every day, and then the customer does not want to pay more for it. I don't know if the virtual world is going to allow us to adjust that. Also, when you discuss the virtual world, there's a lot of new costs associated with that. Now, I understand if you're running a ghost kitchen, you can balance that with some of your occupancy costs. However, if you're just trying to pivot or add on, it becomes a lot. I think that people just really need to understand more about food, where food comes from, and the process in which, it takes to get into the restaurant, the specialized and skilled labor it takes to prepare it, and what it takes to get to your table. And that may never happen. Honestly, if it hasn't happened in the last 2 decades, I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know. There's a lot of Netflix documentaries about food, but I don't think that's changing people's spending.
Maybe they need to start watching some of these mini documentaries, chef, before they are able to place their order.
Right. Yeah.
So we do have one more poll question, and I'm really curious about this one. Actually, it is related to sort of what Kirk has been talking about allowing your kitchen space to be used by ghost or virtual restaurant brands. Kirk, I'm sure you're going to be fascinated to find out the answer to this one as well. I know we've run through almost an entire hour and haven't taken any questions from the audience except for one. So if you guys have a question, please go ahead and use the Q&A window to ask it. I do have a quick question. It's something I've been reflecting on, and you guys heard me ask it earlier when we were practicing, but I want to know what you think about the opportunity of virtual kitchens when it comes to lowering the barrier to entry in the restaurant space. What do you think the effect is going to be on that if someone, perhaps it wasn't a single Black woman who wasn't able to get capital, is now able to afford starting a virtual kitchen or creating a concept that way? What do you think that's going to look like? What do you think that landscape will look like? Jen, do you want to take it first?
Sure, I'll start. Well, the way that we build, we carry the CapEx. So yes, a member can come in, they can do their thing, and oh, look at that.
Wow.
64% would say no. And so we carry the CapEx. The other thing is that in a footprint like ours, the square footage is really optimized, which is a little bit what Kirk does also, right? Like what you're saying, what he's doing is saying, okay, here's the existing footprint. Now let's run as many concepts as we can within that one footprint, assuming that each concept is its own unique revenue stream. So yes, I think, and I think that the model will evolve, that we know the demand is there, that probably, I would say in the not too distant future, this sort of becomes something of like, you see a Starbucks on every corner. Sometimes they're right across the street from one another. There's a lot of room, both in dense urban and in suburbs markets, to make this work. So I think we're going to see more and more restaurants either launching additional concepts themselves or maybe subletting space. I think we're going to see manufacturers maybe get into this game, possibly like your question, Anna, about distribution channels. I think we're going to see everybody around in the F&B space trying to figure out ways to kind of tap into the opportunity, but also create new revenue streams during a time when some revenue streams are being lost. I mean, there's some, if we think about like landowners in different areas that are struggling in the country, hospitality, how can they pivot?
Well, and it's interesting too, I was talking, I think I told y'all earlier, I was talking with some real estate developers yesterday. And one of the things they brought up is around retail and the new retail concepts that are coming up. Like if you study where retail growth is going, it's really fascinating. So gyms, home improvement, housewares, furniture stores, those are all continuing to grow. And if you think about how easy would it be to add a scullery to something like that, like apparently Lowe's is going to be developing like their own scratch and dent brand that's going to go out there. Like, that's great. Like, people go to IKEA to eat their food. So gross, but whatever. Okay.
Can I?
Yeah, you each get like 15 more seconds, and then I'm going to toss it back to Patty.
So Jen talked about the revenue streams, and one of the things that we are, when I talked about earlier about the distribution channel, is one of the things that we've done is we've partnered with 2 manufacturers recently that make unique products that they can't get into the grocery stores because it's too expensive.
Mm.
So we have now created online virtual stores that our restaurant partners hold these products in their freezers, and they actually get delivered frozen to the customer. The delivery service takes it right from there. So there's a whole new revenue stream that we bring to a restaurant that they don't even have to cook the product. They just take it out of the freezer, put it in a bag, and hand it to a driver to take to the home. And there's going to be a whole world of this coming very quickly. It's kind of the Amazon model built into local restaurants. And do you want to have the top 5 restaurants in a town on virtual coming out of your kitchen, or do you want them coming out of your competitor's kitchen? That's what it comes down to. So that 64% that said they wouldn't allow a ghost,
I knew
you'll be changing your mind very quickly.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Pete, Chef Spear, Jen, Kirk, thank you guys so much for being part of this conversation. I could talk with you guys, I feel like, all afternoon and still only scratch the surface. I do need to toss it back to Patty, though, from National Restaurant Association. Thank you guys so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us. Good to see you all.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks. Take care, everybody. Nice to meet everybody today.
We're all good. Good to see you all. Thanks for picking me up. I stumbled a couple times.
Great.
I'll talk to y'all soon.
Thanks,
Bye.
folks. To
Bye.
attend our next session, be sure to refer to the agenda for the link for the 12:15 Fear, Safety, Security, and a New Contactless World session.